Good morning, Midwest moms or Midwest dads or anybody listening, really. Um, so this we're gonna start this a little different, okay? As you can obviously hear, my co-host is not here. So Midwest moms is now just Midwest mom. Becca had to step away. Her pregnancy is very different than what she's used to. And her health and the baby's health go above everything else. Um, I'm I'm still gonna go with this. I really love doing this. Still gonna do the weekly episodes. I'm gonna try to do some other stuff here and there, throw some feelers out, have fun with it. Um, but with that being said, if anybody's feeling froggy and they want to hop on and be a special guest, you're more than welcome. Doors always open to whoever if you're not fucking weird. Honestly. Um, but yeah, sorry if I just end up annoying everybody, which may happen. Um, but I really do enjoy researching things. I love learning. Um, I love talking about this kind of stuff and talking about hard topics. And just interesting things and things that should be talked about. Um, so if you like listening, thank you. We are gonna kind of do a mini reset with this adventure. Um, so again, please, if you pray, throw Becca's name into there for a safe and healthy rest of her pregnancy and a safe and healthy labor. And if you don't pray and that's not your thing, just send all the good vibes her way. Just if she comes up in thought, send some good vibes. She is my best friend above all. Um, love you. Uh, hopefully sometime in the future we can again be Midwest moms. But until then, thanks for sticking around. Let's start this show.
Oh my gosh, what did we do?
I think we just hit somebody. Siri, how do we hide a body?
So, West Memphis 3 trials. To start this hellscape of a topic, if you know anything about West Memphis 3, you know the bullshit storm we're about to start. So we're gonna begin with Jesse Misskelley's trial. And this one's really frustrating and it's really sad. His began early in 1994. His recanted confession was the centerpiece of the entire prosecution's case. Again, recanted confession. He has many confessions, and they all contradict each other. They're all different. None of them are consistent. So just keep that in mind, okay? The lawyer brought to attention that his confession had been coerced. Um, Early versions of his statements differed from what physical evidence was saved. He falsely claimed that the boys had been sexually assaulted and that they had been tied with a brown rope. He says brown rope a lot. That but the kids they'd been bound with shoelaces. Their shoelaces from their shoes. When the lawyer brought all that to attention, the the police just stated that Jesse, he's just confused. He's just confused. He needs some readjusting and he'll get the story right. Um, this boy was not confused. Yes, he was a boy. He was a teenager. He should not have been left alone with police for 12 hours. 12 whole hours. His mental capacity could not handle that. Imagine sitting a second grader in a room and there's just angry cops yelling at you constantly, telling you that you did all of these awful things, and following it up with, if you tell us the truth, then you get to go home. All you got to do is tell us the truth. And so this childlike mind is like, okay, well, I've been telling you the truth and I still can't go home. So you start picking from the cop story and you start inferring little things here and there and bringing it to your own kind of story, and you create your own story, and you see that these cops are like, yeah, just keep telling us. And with a very childlike mind, you're like, yeah, I get to go home now. That they're responding well to what I'm saying, so yeah, let's just do this and I can go home. Um he he didn't get to go home. He never slept in his own bed for like the next 20 years. So Mr. Stidham, his lawyer, this this man tried. He really did try, and he really wanted the best for Jesse, right? Because his first interaction with Jesse, Jesse thought he was another cop, and so Jesse was really scared of him, and he didn't want to talk because he'd been just bullied by cops this entire time. And so when Jesse finally learned what a lawyer was, and that's what Stidham was there for, he handed him a pamphlet that the jail chaplain gave him. And he asked his lawyer, he said, Mr. Stidham, who is Satin? And the pamphlet was about Satan. This so called ritualistic satanic teenager didn't know who Satan was, couldn't even spell it. And from the very beginning, his Mr. Stidham, his lawyer, was stonewalled for the entire cross examination with Gary Gitchell. And if you know Gary Gitchell, you know he's a piece of crap. So, yeah, Gary Gitchell acted confused with every single question asked by Stidham. And the prosecution was stating that Stidham was asking improper questions. So the judge said he can only ask questions about Jesse's statement if he knew what exact page the statement was printed on and what line of said page the statement could be found. Okay? While I'm writing this, I have the court transcripts brought up, like next to my document. And so I'm literally reading the transcripts as I'm typing this, and I cannot believe how ridiculous all of this sounds. Like, it sounds like little kids throwing a fit because their rules for their pretend game aren't followed. Okay? So Stidham plays their game, and he's like, all right, so on this page, you'll find that on this line, it says this. Okay? And Stidham, he goes with it. And he's like, all right, whatever. So he fucking walks Gitchell like a dog in the courtroom. He's pointing out all these discrepancies, and all Gitchell could say was that Jesse was confused. That was his comeback for every single question. And every time Stidham was like, well, you said this, but now you're saying this. And you said that Jesse said this, but on this page, it says this. And so he was pretty much proving that Gitchell was lying under oath so many times. And so one of my favorite lines from reading this transcript is he asked Gary Gitchell about Jesse saying the little boys were killed around noon. But they were clearly in school around noon. They have multiple confirmations from the teachers and the staff from the school that they were in school. But when Jesse was like, yeah, we killed him around noon, the police were like, it's fine. He just doesn't know time, I guess. And so Stidham just straight up asked Gitchell. He's like, is it common to ignore things like time of death? And Gitchell tries to interrupt, and Stidham's like, no, let me finish my question. Is it common for police to simply ignore those big, obvious problems and assume that everything else Jesse is telling you has got to be correct when he can't even tell you the time of day that these boys were killed? And, of course, surprise, Gary Gitchell, all he said was, Jesse's just confused. As somebody who has been called to jury duty, it's frustrating to think of how thick skulled these jurors must have been. Okay? Every time Gary Gitchell opens his mouth, in my head, he just sounds more and more dumb and very clueless about the justice system and laws. And he made a lot of observations about the boys' bodies. And those should have been viewed as speculation. And he should not have been viewed as an expert in pathology. But everything he said, it was taken at face value. Like, everybody believed, everybody ate up every single word he said. And the court was so hell-bent on making this a big satanic cult case. And Stidham plainly said, just because you saw him hanging out with people doesn't mean he is in a cult. Kids hang out with kids. Okay? And during witness testimony, right, so many people recanted their original statements. Like, statements from when they were interviewed by the police before all of this. They said, none of that's true. They made me do it. Okay? And so, losing all their witnesses, dropping like flies, the prosecution claims that a private investigator hired by, I think, Damien's family, the prosecution claimed that he was going around intimidating the witnesses and pretty much making them be like, nope, I take my statement back. Nope. But it was the complete opposite, okay? The police were intimidating people, okay? The police were bringing in very fragile-minded townsfolk. Even on a few occasions, they were bribing people. They were buying them things. They bought one guy a new pair of work boots to get a statement. And all of it is proven. all of it is right there, literally. Like, you can look at all of these documents as proof. And nope, all the court cared about was if the PI was licensed in Arkansas. And he was, because the defense made sure to cross all their T's and dot all their I's, because this is a really big deal and it is a very corrupt case. And so Stidham lays out every single reason for doubt. He makes it as simple as possible for everyone to understand. If this man could, he would damn near be holding your hand and walking you through the entire case, piece by piece, pointing out the lies and inconsistencies. Like, this is a lie. This is what happened in real life. This is what they said happened. That is a lie. This is what actually happened. Or this person said this at this time, but that's not true, because all of this happened at this time and it is proven. Okay? While reading these transcripts, I am in no way inclined to make any judgments about the legal system. I'm not that smart, okay? I don't claim to know laws or be a lawyer or any of that shit, okay? I'm a normal person just reading a court transcript. I am reading people's conversations. That's all a court transcript is. And I feel like I was losing brain cells reading this transcript. Like, there's so much repetition and so much fake confusion. Like, it all the police officers were like, I don't know. Maybe I said that. Mm, I don't remember saying that. I never said that. And because Stidham had to be very specific about what he said, so it wasn't considered hearsay, he had the proof. He had the proof and the pudding, okay? None of these cult accusations could be proven in any way at all. Okay? So, a mistrial was requested by Jesse's team, and it was denied, of course, because God forbid anybody gets a fair trial in this whole situation. So honestly, the jury didn't take very long at all to come to this conclusion, but he was found guilty on all counts. Jesse Misskelley was sentenced to life plus 40 years. He was never meant to see the outside of a prison wall because he was forced and intimidated into saying some kids he hung out with every once in a while that he joined them in murdering 3 little boys. And, not just murdering these boys, they were accused of sexually assaulting these boys. Never proven. Never. That's just something they stirred up in Jesse's head, and they ran with it. It was all of these things that sounded cool. And it sounded too crazy to not be true, almost, you know? So they found him guilty, which I'm not surprised. I mean, I am, because as an adult who can think for herself, and I'm a pretty decent judge of character, it's it's incredibly frustrating, okay? So, it took me a while to fumble through all the transcripts, okay? And really get a good grasp on how these courtroom vibes were. So, some of it is kind of hard to read, not gonna lie. It's a lot of Jesse's stuff is just a copied typewriter transcript. So, a lot of the words are faded, but context clues, baby. Elementary school reading level shit. But hold on. Also, if you're watching this video, this is one of those weird berry blast things for McDonald's. Not that great. Don't waste your money. I'm just drinking it because I don't want to waste my money. But yeah. Anyways, back to this tomfoolery. So, like I said, some of it's really hard to read, okay? Due to it being recorded on a goddamn typewriter. Like, we're in the dark ages or some shit. Um, but for Damien and Jason, I found it transcribed into like normal documents. So I got this. I got this. I'm doing my best, okay? I'm getting better. Um, finding better sources and learning what is just like a fan website and what is actual real court transcripts. The more boring it looks, the more real it is, honestly. If it looks boring as hell and it's just words and words and words and words, you're probably right. It's probably the stuff you're looking for. And it's mind numbing. Okay? So, have some faith, guys. I'm doing my best. I am trying to find the truth. Okay? So, and I'm not digging deep into these trials because it's tedious and it's stupid, and I don't want to drag you guys through that. So we're just kind of gonna get the big picture, okay? So the boys, Damien and Jason, they had a combined trial. So pretty much everything that they were gonna say against Damien would also be held up against Jason, okay? Which is crap. So yeah. Um Before they started their opening arguments, Price and Ford, the boys' lawyers, from the jump, they asked to dismiss the case due to lack of probable cause. Okay? Their argument was that Jesse was a juvenile, okay? And he needed written consent from his parents to provide a statement. No, no, his dad didn't sign anything, okay? He just thought he was going to get some money. And they referred to an old case, Rhodes versus State, the state of Arkansas, that under the juvenile code provisions, Order 920-7317, in order for a juvenile who is arrested to waive his rights, his parents also have to sign to waive the rights. Okay? So if he wants to waive his rights, his parents have to be asked also. Okay? You gotta have parents' written permission. Basic rules of anything with an underaged child. No, not even underage child, just a child. Every child is underage. Don't get me started. Okay? So, the state argued that in this case, that at the time, a 16-year-old in adult court, charges can be filed against said juvenile. So pretty much the state was like, well, we decided to charge a 16-year-old as an adult, so he didn't even need any parental waivers. All of the charges. He was going to be tried as an adult. And they're still talking about Jesse's case. Jesse was a child. He was a teenager when he got questioned by the cops. So, like, they haven't even talked about Damien and Jason because the entire case against Damien and Jason was based on a confession made by Jesse. That's it. Okay? So the defense argued that the Rhodes case was almost exactly as Jesse Miskelly's case, okay? Like almost to the T, like all the charges, everything. And they argued that when Jesse waived his rights, like, when they read you your Miranda rights and they talk about all that stuff, and do you understand these rights? And yeah, I do. He didn't listen to a goddamn thing those cops said. He was terrified, okay? And they probably just slipped it in without him even noticing, okay? And again, he was in there for 12 hours. 12 hours. And they only recorded the last 45 minutes that they were with him, okay? So they were arguing that this confession coerced out of this child should be suppressed from Damien and Jason's because the confession shouldn't even be used because it was made by a kid without parental consent. Plain and simple. And since the prosecution only had that confession on Damien and Jason, they said there's no probable cause to charge those two boys because the confession should be tossed. Which would make Jason and Damien free to go home. And so, of course, I hate this judge so much. He immediately denied the request, didn't give it a second thought. His opinion was that Stidham should really use that information in Jesse's appeals. But as far as their two clients are concerned, it does not persuade the court in the slightest, his exact words. The cops did not follow the law. But the judge says, oh well, I don't care. And he said, after looking into the Rhodes case, it doesn't pertain to this case, to Jesse's case, because it took place in a different courtroom. Yeah. The Rhodes case does not pertain in this situation because it was held in a different courtroom. Tell me that doesn't sound like little kid logic when they're making up rules for their fake games. It sounds like he is just saying, nope, I don't like that rule. Did that in the courtroom across the hall. Not in this one. Everything's the same, but I don't want to do that. So they carried on. And so in Fogelman, I hate that fucking name. Fogelman's opening statement, he said there is going to be negative evidence presented. Okay? Negative evidence is evidence that doesn't connect to anyone. Okay? It just is. Like it's evidence. But it doesn't prove anything and it doesn't point to anybody. Okay? So I see it as just like fluffer between accusations, okay? They can accuse and have their opinions, okay? Hearsay about Jason and Damien, but in between all of the crap, he's gonna be like, look at this evidence. Has nothing to do with anything, but it is submitted evidence. Okay? And he keeps saying, yes, it is negative evidence, but I'll explain it later. He repeats that so many times. He's like, yeah, that'll be negative evidence. I'll explain it later. I'll explain it later. He is confusing the jury, okay? He's making it seem like these things are really important. Okay, look at this. Look at this shiny piece of evidence. Look how cool it is. But I won't tell you why it's cool. Just know that it is. Okay? And just wait. But guess what? Never explains any of this negative evidence. And that's pretty much his whole opening statement. It's just pretty much being like, these boys are guilty. Why? I guess we'll see. But you don't. Okay? He kind of just keeps dragging you along. So immediately when Ford, that's Jason's lawyer, Ford, he begins his opening statement, not even done with the first sentence. Fogelman yells, object. Bro, shut the fuck up. Like, I'm gonna read Ford's statement, opening statement, because it's actually really good, okay? It's long. Bear with me. But it paints the picture, and it is written really well, okay? This man knows what he's doing, okay? I want him to write a book. I would definitely read it. So, here we go. Again, this is Ford's opening statement. So, with that kind of person, why are we here today? We are here today because on May the 5th in 1993, a tragedy occurred in West Memphis, Arkansas. And that tragedy was the brutal killing of 3 8-year-old boys. No one's going to argue. No one is going to say anything that is a tragedy. That's not the question, though. We are not here to determine if a tragedy occurred. And we are not here to determine whether these boys suffered a horrible death. What we are here today, and the purpose of this trial, is to determine if Jason did it. The prosecution told you that around 6 o'clock to 6:30 in the evening of May the 5th, these 3 young boys were out playing, riding their bicycles, and their parents missed them. They began to wonder where they are, and they immediately became concerned the way I would with my children. And they began to look, and they began to holler, "Where are they?" The way we all would. When it became apparent that they weren't at the neighbors next door, they became more concerned. They began to search even harder, the way everyone would if their child were missing. But unfortunately, they did not find them that night. And the search was called off, and they'll wait till the morning. When morning comes, though, the police get involved. Again, the police and the parents and everyone is concerned, and they are looking for these boys, as they should. And they were up approximately 2 o'clock on the afternoon of May the 6th. They found them. They secured the scene, which was described to you. They taped it off with the yellow tape that you see on crime scenes or where fires occur, so people are to stay out. Don't disturb the area. There may be facts. There may be clues. There may be evidence left out here. Do not disturb it. They do that, and as they search that area, you'll see from their own testimony, they found nothing. Not even a drop of blood. At that time, the questions were in their minds. Questions upon questions. They had to find the answers. It's the job of the police department to find the answers, but they didn't have the box that came with this puzzle to look at. They didn't know what type of pieces they were trying to put together. The evidence will show that since they didn't know who they were looking for, they began an exhaustive and massive investigation. They went door to door in this community, knocking and asking, "What have you seen? What have you heard? Can you tell us anything to help?" You'll see that they were looking for transients. They were going to homeless shelters, not only in West Memphis, but in Memphis, Tennessee, looking for someone who just might be passing through. West Memphis is a trucking community. They began to look for a trucker who may just be passing through. The evidence will show that they went and obtained fuel records from the truck stops in the area to see who might be passing through and have bought truck fuel, okay? You'll see that they were looking for a veteran. They went door to door looking for a veteran, someone with military experience, because some of the things they had found led them to believe that they were looking for a veteran. They began to look for known sex offenders, but they weren't looking for a 16-year-old boy. The West Memphis Police Department was in charge of this investigation, but they needed help. They didn't have any answers to the questions. So they enlisted as the help of Crittenden County Sheriff's Department and all their forces. They elicited assistance from the Arkansas State Police in their criminal investigations. They elicited assistance from the police in Memphis, Tennessee. They began to receive information and help and clues from police departments all over the country. They began to look for assistance from the FBI. They began to try to go throughout the community with questionnaires from the FBI to determine what is the profile of this killer. But despite that search, that was a massive scale. There were no answers to any of these questions they were asking. There was no solid evidence pointing to anyone. And the pressure began to build, and arrests needed to be made. Chief Inspector Gary Gitchell of the West Memphis Police Department was conducting daily press conferences. The public wanted someone. The press wanted someone. They wanted answers to their questions, but the evidence will show. As late as the 28th day of May, they admitted they were blindfolded. They had no answers. And suddenly, an arrest was made. Jason Baldwin was arrested. The police swarm into his life and into his residence and arrest him in the middle of the night. They come in, they take his clothes, they take his shoes, they take his personal belongings, they obtain his school records and his school grades and his schoolwork. They obtain samples of his hair, of his blood, of his saliva. They take his fingerprints. They take his handwriting samples. They take footprints, and they make casts of his shoes for shoe prints, all looking for something to link him to this crime. And then they had to take all of this evidence, send it out to the experts, send it to Little Rock, to the crime lab, send it to the FBI in Virginia at Quantico for them to access it. Send it to the experts in Alabama for their opinion, and you'll see once again they came up empty. No substantiating evidence to link him to this crime. But before that ever occurs, and before that is made public, Inspector Gitchell goes in front of the same press who had once been the source of his pressure and says, on a scale of 1 to 10, the proof against this young boy is an 11. And from that point forward, nobody believes him. No matter what he says, no one listens. The police have an 11. This is an open shut case, okay? We're done. We found out who it is. Cool. But you'll see that that's far from the truth. You'll see that Jason Baldwin came in front of this court and declared his innocence. And that's why we are here today. The testimony will show you 3 things that I want you to be listening for carefully. I told you first about this massive investigation that took place. You'll see the evidence they chose to disregard. The suspects, the statements, the physical evidence they chose to disregard because it didn't fit the puzzle they wanted to play and make in front of you. You'll see that this evidence that they have and that they'll present to you today and in the days that come is disguised. It has been twisted, it has been manipulated and distorted in order to make the pieces of the puzzle they want to build to fit together. And you'll see that from their own witnesses. Lastly, you will see from these witnesses evidence that will show you that Jason Baldwin is innocent from their own testimony. From the witnesses they will bring in front of you in the days that come, you will see one of 3 things, all of which, or anyone standing alone, will show you that Jason Baldwin is innocent. Under your oath as a juror, listen to that evidence. Thank you. All right. I love it. I love that opening statement. I don't know, he creates a visual of the puzzle that the police are trying to put together. And yeah, I don't know. I love it. So, reading the transcripts, I go over to Damien's defense. They seem very nervous. There's a lot of ums and a lot of pauses. I do the same thing. I trip up on my words. It is what it is. But Ford's opening statements are not as eloquent. No, my bad. Ford is a good one. He writes beautifully. Talk about the other one. Damien's defense. He doesn't paint the picture, okay? He's very simple and straight to the point. He talks about the incompetence of the police department and that Damien is innocent. Our favorite person, Gary Gitchell, is called up as a witness by Fogelman. Again. So, his whole thing is about this stupid knife, okay? Fogelman questions Gitchell about this knife that's found in the lake at Jason's trailer park. It's a body of water in the middle of a trailer park. I'll let your mind wander. Because, it probably has quite a few knives in it, okay? But Fogelman questions him, and he asks, what made you decide to search the lake? And Gitchell was like, you told me to. Like, So they just miraculously knew exactly where to search for this one knife in this gross ass lake in a trailer park. And so during his witness statement, Gitchell says that there was a substance on it. So he sent it out, okay? Sent it to, I don't even remember where, but he sent it to get it analyzed and check to see what was on it. You know, the fun CSI stuff. So police weren't even the ones to find said knife. It was the people that were working on the HBO documentary Paradise Lost that found the knife. Okay? So they send in the knife, blah, 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 comes back. They rushed it because they found it really close to the trial. So the substance that was on it was of Mr. Byers' DNA. Okay? It was one of the victim's stepfathers, like, DNA was on it, okay? And the prosecution tried to play around issues and they tried to be just stupid and clueless like they were in Jesse's trial. So the prosecution decided to question Jerry Driver. Okay, they brought him up as a witness. He's just a juvenile corrections officer. He's nobody important, okay? And they just were like, when did you see them? And he was like, oh, I saw them a couple times here and there. And Fogelman was like, what were they wearing? Like, what color were they wearing? Jerry Driver, they was wearing black. And I'm not exaggerating or anything. He asked what color they were wearing. And he said black. And that was the last question. That was like the only thing they asked Jerry Driver. So they're dressed in black. Prosecution says no further questions. So they want to bring Damien up to cross-examine him. Cool. Probably not the best idea, but it is what it is. He's going to do what he wants. So they have a little bench conference, which is pretty much the lawyers go up to the judge and they have a little secret whisper time. And Price, who is Damien's lawyer, argues that Fogelman is going to try to tell the jury that when Damien stopped answering questions, that they should see it as silence being an admission to the crime. He stopped answering questions, so he must be guilty. No. No. That is not okay. And Price clearly knows what Fogelman's trying to do. He states that there is no transcript, no video, and no audio of Damien's interview. Nothing. There is no evidence that Damien did a statement except just a little bit of notes scribbled on a notepad. Okay? And Damien sat there for 45 minutes in complete silence. He's like, I'm not answering anything else. I'm done. And they asked. The police that were interviewing him, they were like, so what are you scared of? Out of nowhere. After Damien's just been sitting there. What are you scared of? Damien says, the electric chair. And to them, that is more proof that he's guilty because he's scared of getting the death penalty. And during all of this, the lawyer that Damien's mom contacted was banging on the police station doors, demanding them to let him in and trying to scream to Damien to stop answering questions. Do not talk to them. And the police never let him in. Nope. Damien requested a lawyer 3 different times, and not once did they comply to his request. And they literally locked his lawyer out. This is like one of the most stupid parts, and it's what I'm ending with. So, evidence submitted to the court. Literal, this is their evidence that they submitted to the court. Was that Damien's interest in Stephen King, the author, and that he enjoyed listening to Metallica. They said because of these interests, he was involved in Satanist activities that included chewing off young boys' genitals because he read Stephen King and he liked listening to Metallica. Immediately, he's a Satanist and he likes chewing off boys' genitals to get their powers. Not exaggerating again. This is just complete insanity. But the jury ate it up. They fucking loved it. It was like a TV show that everyone loves to watch, like CSI and all those fun things. The eventual convictions rested on theories, a coerced confession from a completely separate trial, and the community's fear of a literal Satan. No actual evidence. Theories, coerced confession, and court of public opinion. They saw this little goth boy with his friends. Jesse wasn't even their friend, okay? But there's a lot more to the story and a lot more crap, and the witnesses that they used are awful. I didn't even get into the waitress that they sent undercover to try to trick Damien. Maybe I'll bring that up on the next episode. We'll see. But this completes this episode. Thank you for sticking around and listening. I apologize if my voice annoys you or if I wasn't funny enough. I will try to fix that. Throw in some humor. Just trying to get my bearings being a solo podcaster. It still feels weird to talk to myself and look at myself on the screen, not gonna lie. But again, if anybody wants to hop on, you're more than welcome. And again, send good vibes to Becca's way. Yeah, we want nothing but the best for her. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. We will be going over the fight. People fighting for decades for these boys. And the conclusion of said fight. Okay? So, well, these kids didn't deserve this. They're not having rituals and shit. Thanks, guys. Have a great night, great day, great morning, whenever you fucking listen to this. But yeah, adios.